Okay, we shall continue again. Okay. So we were discussing the subsystem design processes. Now here, in order to explain the subsystem design process, a 4-bit microcontroller is taken as an environment which has four major architectural blocks. That is ALU, control unit, IO unit, and the memory. So with respect to this microprocessor, the subsystem design processes explain. Now, some of the general considerations are there when we go for the subsystem design processes. Okay. So, therefore, if your microcontroller is a system, then the ALU, control unit, or memory or IO unit, they can be thought of as subsystems. Okay. So, therefore, a whole system is built using the design of these subsystems. So, therefore, then what are the general considerations need to be considered when subsystem design process is done? So among all consideration, the first one is a lower unit cost. Okay. So therefore, here the care should be taken that per unit the cost is low. Okay. So this is because as you have so many units in a design process, then the cost may multiply. So therefore, the very basic unit should be of very low cost, so that the entire cost of the design, okay, so is kept low. Then other one is the higher reliability. Okay, so in case of very high integrated systems, okay, so where there are reduced interconnections, then ensuring reliability is most important. It is not only that the integration level is very high, at the same time, whatever the reduced interconnections are there, they should be such that, okay, that they should be reliable one. So therefore, the reliability aspect is the most important one. Then the third one will be the lower power dissipation. Okay. So whatever the subsystem is designed, okay, so it should dissipate a very low power. Also, along with the low power dissipation, the lower volume as well as the lower weights, they are also considered as very important aspects. That is, whatever the method you adopt for the design, then that approach should consume very less power, very less weight compared to the other approaches. Okay, so such an approach should be used or selected. Then coming to the next point, it is a always better performance. This is a must. Okay, and the performance, it is measured in terms of the speed, power, product. So therefore, what are the factors that are disturbing this performance and how to improve the performance? So all those have to be considered while designing the subsystems, because the performance of the subsystem has a direct impact on the functioning of the system as a whole. Then the one more important aspect is enhanced repeatability. Okay, so now here, uh, whenever we a system is very large, okay, so then uh, the repeatability of the units, okay, it is most uh, expected one, or it is the most desirable one. Okay, so because it reduces the design complexity also. Okay, and if the same unit is repeated again, okay, then the interconnections or interoperability will also be good. Then the possibility of the reduced design, that is, whenever a subsystem is designed, okay, so the design in which the design steps or the design methodology is a reduced one. Okay, so that has to be chosen, particularly while designing the complex system. So that approach should be used, which has very less possibility of the very complex designs. That is, a possibility of reduced design. So that method should be adopted in the design of the complex systems. So these are some of the general considerations whenever some subsystem design process is done. But there are some problems are also associated with the subsystem design. So among them, the first one is how to design a very large complex system in a reasonable time and effort. So that is the main thing. So a proper design should be there. Again, when you go for a proper design, then the entire design is nothing but it is a combination of so many sub designs or so many sub modules. Okay, so therefore, the design of each subsystem or a submodule has to be done with what we have just listed in the previous uh, slide. It is general consideration. So now these all should be incorporated in the design of subsystems only. Then the design of larger complex system becomes somewhat easy, and also the design of complex system can be completed within a reasonable time and effort. Okay, so therefore, whenever a complex system has to be designed, the main problem that is encountered is how exactly to complete that design within a reasonable time with a reasonable effort. Then other one is the nature of architectures which are suited, okay, to take the full advantage of the VLSI as well as the technology. So therefore, which architecture should be adopted so that we can fully utilize, okay, the advantages of VLSI. So that the approach, okay, so which best suits this requirement has to be selected. So otherwise the system may get too complex. Okay, so therefore the selection of that point is also one of the important aspect as well as also one problem. The other one will be the testability. Okay, so once your design is completed, okay, so then how exactly to test them? Okay, so testing of large complex systems once they are implemented on the silicon is also one of the problems. So it is not only the design consideration. Okay, so once it is implemented on the silicon, then what are the available testing procedures? Okay, so that should also be decided. So therefore, what are the steps followed in a general design process? So that this is known as illustration of the design process. So the design here, it begins with hierarchy. Okay, so that is, it follows a definite pattern. So the structured design, okay, begins with a particular concept of hierarchy. That is, the concept of hierarchy, it is nothing but a complex design or a complex function is divided into sub functions, and the complexity of these sub functions is less when compared to the main function. Okay, so therefore, so the first step in this hierarchy involves dividing a complex function into many sub functions which have reduced complexity. Okay, then subfunctions may be further divided. Subfunctions may be further divided into some more subfunctions, and those minimized subfunctions, they may be called as leaf cells. Leaf cells. Okay, so you can go on dividing a complex function till you reach a minimum level, and that minimum design which cannot be further split, this can be called as a leaf cell. Okay, and this approach is particularly known as top-down approach. Okay, so this is known as a top-down approach. So taking a complex system and coming down to a very low complex system. So by going on dividing the complex system into so many subfunctions. So our design will begin with the complex, and then it will move on till we reach the leaf cells. Then as system's complexity increases, its organization changes as different factors become relevant to its creation. Okay, so this is the one. Because our division of complex functions may not be unique. Okay, so it may differ. So therefore, as the complexity increases, the organization or the structure also may change. Now, whenever we are using so many submodules, okay, so coupling may be required in order to check, okay, how submodules are interacting. Okay, it is not only that you divide the complex function into so many subdivisions, but there some coupling or some interaction should also be checked. Okay, so for this, the coupling can be used as a measure to see how much submodules are intact. Okay, so therefore, clever subsystem partitioning aims at reducing the implicit complexity by minimizing the amount of interaction between the subparts. This independence of design becomes a real. So this is one, that is how the subfunctions have to be divided. So they should have a very least dependence between them so that you can independently design them. Okay, because if the subsystems or the submodules are too much dependent on each other, then again the designing them individually become a complex process. So therefore, clever partitioning is required. Okay, so in a clever partitioning, okay, so we are reducing the complexity by minimizing what? The interdependency between the submodules. When there is no dependency between the submodules, they can be individually handled and individually designed. Okay, so then that should be decided by looking at the main function. That should be decided how to have the subfunctions or how to divide into subfunctions or the lake cells. Then the next consideration will be, it is crucial that components interact with high frequency, be physically proximate, since one may pay penalties for serve penalties for long high bandwidth interconnects. Okay, so here this particular point, it is related with the interaction between the sub functions or the sub modules. Okay, so it is very important to see that components which interact with high frequency, okay, that is the two modules which have very high frequency of interaction between them, they should be placed closer together, that is they have to be physically proximate. Okay, so uh, that particular placing of the sub modules plays a important role. Then there is one more point, concurrency should be exploited. That means it is desirable that all gates on the chip do useful work most of the time. Okay, so therefore you will have to choose such that so all the gates, okay, so they all participate and all the sub functions are active. Then adaptation is also one of the important consideration. So whatever the hierarchy that is followed, okay, it should be adaptable to the changing technology. Okay, so therefore whatever the hierarchy or whatever the methodology that is followed, it should be independent. Okay, it should be independent of this technology, independent. So it is because if it is uh, that technology independent, then the process is very easily adaptable to the changing technology. So these are some critical issues that should be taken care in case of designing the subsystems. Now, in order to go exactly with the subsystem design process, as I told you, some of the major blocks of the microcontroller are considered here. So, here it shows the general arrangement of a 4-bit arithmetic processor. So, what are the general arrangements? Okay, so a 4-bit arithmetic processor, it has got the blocks like this. First of all, it has a memory block, ALU registers are there, control is there, and IO, input output is also there. In order to have interaction among all these, we always need data bus as well as address bus as well as control bus. So this shows basic digital process structure in the block diagram form. Now in the next diagram here, it shows the block diagram version of only the data bus. It is only a data bus that is considered here in detail. In this, you can see that the data path, okay, this is a data path, it is a data in, data out. So here, basic arithmetic and logical and shift operations and temporary storage operations. Okay. So, and there is a control also for this. So now this can be combined into a data in and out. It can be further, here we have separate data in and data out. It can be made bidirectional, data in and with the same control. Okay. So this shows what is the communication strategy for a data path. Okay. the data path is separately drawn here. Now in the basic digital process structure, we have a data path as well as other blocks, but in this diagram only data path is separated, and so we can see that how the data is applied at one port and it is coming out at the second port, and this is an alternate arrangement. This is an alternate arrangement, and it's a single bidirectional port. This is known as a single bidirectional port if storage facilities exist in the particular data path. And control signal. Okay, so control over some functions may be achieved by using the control signal. So therefore now this data path is further decomposed. Okay, so here what we just look at the decomposing data path into a block diagram. So this is the in detail inspection about the data path. Okay, block diagram showing the main subunits. Okay, so this is a figure showing subunits and basic interconnections for data path. Now as shown here we have input output port, then 4-bit registers are there. Yes, there is a bidirectional communication between them, and from registers it is 4-bit ALU. Okay, then it is a 4-bit end around shifter. So this input output port has a direction control, and registers have select and control, and 4-bit ALU, yeah, arithmetic logical unit. So therefore operation control it has. Then last one is a shift control. So therefore earlier we used to write the diagram as a simply control line, control view. So therefore now this control is distributed here like this. So each and every block has got its own controls. Now this particular picture it shows the basic bus architectures that are used in subsystem designs. Okay, so individually I have taken here. First one, it is called one bus architecture. One bus architecture. So its features are in the sequence wise. Okay, the first operand from the registers to ALU. Then operand is stored there. Then the second operand from the registers to ALU. Then operands are added. That is, it is a single bus architecture. Okay, so first one operand will enter. The next sequence, second operator from operand from the register to ALU will move. Then here operands may be added. Okay, it's the ALU. Whatever the function is there, that will be performed on both the operands, and whatever the result is there, that is stored in the ALU. The result is passed through the shifter. The result is passed through the shifter, and it is stored in again registers. So this kind of execution, this is called as one bus architecture. Then in the two bus architectures, you can observe here there are two buses, bus A and bus B. So what are the sequence then? So here also we have got the same blocks. Registers are there, ALU is there, shifter is there. Okay, so only thing is number of buses are 2. Okay, so this is bus A and this bus B. So now here two operands A and B are sent from registers to ALU. From registers they are sent to ALU because this is the block where either addition or multiplication is done. Okay, so from registers A and B both are sent to the ALU and are operated upon. Operated upon means either addition or multiplication, whatever the logic operation is there, that is done, and result, this is the result, S is stored in ALU. Result S is stored in the ALU. Okay, so here you can see that the 4-bit bus, this is 4-bit bus. Now A operand and B operand, they enter at a time into the ALU, but earlier in the previous architecture, one operand enters into ALU and stored. Second operand enters into ALU, then operation is performed. But whereas in a two bus, okay, both operand A, operand B, okay, so they enter through bus A and bus B, and once the data is collected, they are acted upon, that is operated, either they are added, and whatever the result of addition is there, that is stored the A. Then result is passed through shifter, result is passed through the shifter and stored in the registers. Okay, so therefore, even though here also same operation is done, but the operation will take the help of both the buses. This is what is the difference. Then, now this is called 3-bus architecture. This is one bus, this is a second bus, and this is the last one, connecting register and the shifter. So here what is the sequence is the two operands A and B. Two operands A and B, they are sent from the registers, operated upon. Okay, just it is just this operation is similar to the previous one. From the registers, both A and B buses, the operands will enter into ALU. Then, whatever the result is there, okay, the shifted and shifted. Okay, so once the operation is over and the shifted result, yes, return to another register. Okay, another register, all in the same clock period. Okay, so therefore all the operations are done in the same clock period. So it uses these two buses to give data to ALU. Okay, and once the operation is over, then passing it to the shifter and storing in the register. So all they will take in the same clock period. So now this is the overall architecture in case of a 3-bus. Okay. Now with this architecture, later we will see how exactly to design the shifter center. Next session I will take.